Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for coming back. I am so happy because today it is my absolute privilege. Me and Hiva, we met at a wonderful organization that we both are part of. And so that's where we met each other. But, come to find out when we had our personal conversation with each other, oh my God, you're such an intelligent human being. And so every time when I got the chance to talk to you, I really felt like how your intelligence really vibrates through you. And, today I think our overall umbrella is about mental health in a very stressful position and being a high called producer in your job. And so, first of all, thank you, Hiva, for being here. I'm so grateful that you took the time. I know you're so busy on your end, but I'm very grateful that you decided to be part of my journey. And I'm so excited for this conversation because, what you have to share is, I think, somewhat very common to so many people, but, so often we don't speak on those things. So thank you for having an open heart and using your own story to be a vessel for somebody out there.
Of course. It's my pleasure to be here. So thank you for making this happen. And I think it's very important to talk about mental health. I feel like we're all somehow struggling with it or, going through something these days. So it's the more we can talk about it, and the more we can shed light on it, I think it's very important. So I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Mental health is really something that literally I honestly don't even think that any human out there not ever encountered with any kind of roadblocks or like obstacles about mental health. And of course there's many levels to mental health and many levels where it could really be very severe of like really deep rooted depression, or it could be like burnouts in jobs, or it could be just really sadness internally. But for me, I know a little bit about you because we had the privilege to talk privately, but I was so fascinated when you told me that when you grew up that you kind of like you were a gifted child. And so that I want to give you the floor to really speak on, how did Hiva start? Like who's Hiva? How did this ability of knowing even that you are a gifted child, how did that come about, and where did your story begin?
Yeah, of course. So I think it began when I was around 3 years old, that I started reading books. So I went to my mom. I didn't know alphabets at that point, but I kept going to my mom and asking her about different words and like saying, okay, what is this word? Then I would go away and come back. What is this other word? And then one day I go to her and I'm like, okay, let me read this book for you. And she's like, yeah, fine, whatever. And I start reading it. And it was around ants, like these colony of ants. And then so I started reading it and she was shocked. She was like, wow, you're really reading. It's not like, when kids are pretending that they're reading a book.
Right.
It wasn't like that. I was actually reading the book
Wow.
sentence by sentence. And so what I've done was I had memorized the shape of the words. So whenever I saw that shape, I knew this is that word. And so these things like started, and my mom kind of noticed that, I'm learning really fast. I'm acting a little bit different than my age, like higher than my age. So at some point, I think it was before I went to first grade, was we went to these centers where they did like IQ tests, and I did an IQ test. I do not remember what the number was, but they told me that I had a very high IQ. And at that time, it was very like, I would say kind of fashionable for kids to like skip levels at school. So my
Okay.
mom wanted to like have me skip first grade and go to the second grade. But then when we went to school and she talked to the teacher was like, this skipping a grade is not really gonna affect her, like it's not gonna, she's in no rush to get anywhere, just let her be at her age. And she's gonna have that way, she's gonna have difficulty communicating with people because everyone is gonna be older than her. So it all started from there. Yeah.
Wow. That's really fascinating. I mean, 3 years old, that's really young, that's really young, and I know that, some countries are very quick to teach the alphabet, in Europe. In all honesty, I don't remember me with 3 years old knowing any alphabet. I think I learned literally all of that in first grade. Um, but yeah, that's very fascinating. And so, yeah. And so now that you know this ability, had that any impact on you when you like think back on you being a younger child and then growing up? Had that any impacts on you? Like, how did that make you feel? Did you feel like, wow, I'm like very different and I knocked this material out no matter what? Or that kind of came with some, with some negativity of like, okay, now that I am this high intelligence child, was the expectation on you in any kind of form different, or did you have any different expectations on yourself with this ability? Because I'm pretty sure in school, every grade and every grade, you were probably one of the first ones that's like, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And I mean, it was all very positive experiences for me at that point, just being a
Mm-hmm.
kid. I was always the top of the class, always getting highest grades. And to your point, like in exams, I was the first one to be done. And sometimes even the teachers wouldn't let me leave the exam room because they were like, it's too early. There are still some people who haven't come to the exam room, so you can't go out. But yeah, and I remember there were times that the teachers would ask me to teach the class. There was this one time I had a math teacher who wanted to take a 1 week vacation. So she comes to me and she's like, yeah, look at these chapters, teach the kids these chapters, give them some homework, then write out a quiz for them. Take this quiz and then grade it until I come back. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And being a kid, like these are exciting to you, it makes you feel like a grown up, important person, all these responsibilities. And I even remember like I'm in touch with some of those friends still after, I don't know, God, 20 something years. And we sometimes laugh at it because they would come to me and they would be like, oh, I didn't do well on my exam. I missed this question, or can you correct it for me? And I would be like, no, the teacher trusted me. I can't do that. I can't break her trust. You had to do better. So I wasn't a very popular person because, and it was, I mean, right now I'm laughing about it, but it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
And like growing up, I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, why did I do that? And I get it because, there was that also feeling of being scared. Oh, am I going to disappoint my teacher if I, do this, or if I help my friend with an answer in the test? So there were these expectations. And I remember like, if I ever had a question, if I ever raised my hand in the class to ask a question, everyone would be so shocked. They're like, oh, Hiva has a question? Like, doesn't she know everything? And so little by little, that led to me, stop asking questions, stop being curious, because, I would look around and be like, oh, everyone is expecting me to know all of it. Maybe I can go later and look at this myself, do some research myself. I don't need to, ask it in front of everyone. So over time, I think that like really affected my curiosity and, me like speaking up in front of other people, asking for, a question for what I needed, which, you know, through years and years of therapy later, these things kind of opened up and I realized them. Obviously, at that time, it wasn't really obvious to me.
Yeah, and I also feel like with that, it was pretty hard probably to just make connections and really be a part of the class and just belong to
Yeah.
a group of kids that
Mhm.
are in this classroom every single day for several hours, most of our life, you
Yeah.
know? And so I can only imagine, not only it seems like that it stopped your curiosity, but it also stopped the flow of you really being a child in that age group for that time. Like it almost seemed like it took away a part of your childhood that you didn't never get to explore how it would feel to ask a silly question. Everybody was like, how kids are doing, not necessarily in a negative way, even though
Mhm.
some of us unfortunately experience that too, the being bullied part. But I
Yeah.
think it's almost like you were silently bullied,
Mhm.
like that silence with not really evidential thing where somebody's in your face trying to make you feel something, but like that part of nobody including you or having this feeling of like, well, she knows it all, and she's different than all of us in a
Mhm.
sense, right? And so I can only imagine how that, played out when you got older, because now when you say it stopped kind of like your curiosity playing with, now we're socially inhibited to make
Mhm.
connections. It feels a little bit lonely. It feels a
Yeah.
little bit like, what do I do with this intelligent mind of mine? I'm not able to share it with anybody because they don't get the material that I already figured out. But
Mhm.
then what do I do with that? I mean,
Mhm.
and so my natural question to you is really, what did you do with that? Like, did you just go through life until you grew up and then started to make different choices about it? Or like, how did it really, because you also just brought up therapy,
Yeah.
which is wonderful, when we decide to really go and find help. But
Mhm.
how did you, for you, realize that there was something in a sense that needed healing or needed something, reprogramming in your own mind, besides knowing that you're so intelligent, but that part of you
Mhm.
that seemed to be disconnecting? How did you figure that out for you? How did that come about?
Yeah, that came obviously not with a not easy, and I had to pay the price for that. But like kind of going back a little bit to your point of not being able to communicate with people, not being able to like live through my childhood, that's so true because I well, maybe taking a step back, I was born and raised in Iran. And so it was a totally different society. It was totally different mindset. And
Mhm.
because I was a top student, that brought in some expectations that I had to be always at my best behavior. And that best
Okay.
behavior in that society meant like you shouldn't be running around, you should be quiet, you shouldn't be laughing out loud. So a lot of things that my friends were doing, I couldn't do those because I was like, oh, well, they expect me to be this person. Because there was also a grade for like your behavior. I remember
Mm.
back at school, I don't know if they have it anywhere else too, but they would
Mhm.
grade you on your behavior as well. And it included all of these, being silent, being a very calm child, and so at some point it became very difficult for me to communicate with people my age. And I have a sister who's older than me. She's like 5 6 years older than me. And I remember it was much easier for me to hang out with her and her friends than to people at my age. Like I couldn't kids my age were like we were at so like different levels of mentality. I'm like, oh, they're still kids, like they don't get me, they don't understand. I want to go hang out with these older kids.
Right.
So yeah, that was also something. But then as time went by and I grew older and I started going to work, I realized that I had this perfectionist mindset that was now affecting my work because, and it's something that came from that childhood, from that set of
Mm.
expectations that I had to always know everything, I had to be the best. And so now I'm a grown up, I'm working, I have a job, I have a house, I have other responsibilities, and I'm trying to be best at every single one of them. And
Mm.
I'm failing. I can't. It's just too much to keep up with.
Mm.
It's impossible. Like I remember at some point I was working 12 to 14 hours a day and not being able to say no, just taking on more and more work because everyone were like, "Oh, she can do it," why not? And, we're going to give it to her. And I didn't know how to ask for help,
Mhm.
and that had started really affecting me. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to do something about this.
Yeah. And I also think it's not necessary. I mean, I think it's, if it's safe to say, it seems like it were two parts. It was one part of the expectation that others had placed on you. But then the other part is really because you did execute it. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't even like that they had this expectation on somebody that just didn't produce. It almost seems like because you are really able to produce, these expectations were put on you. And then with time, it's almost seems like that you overtook in the expectations maybe from others and made it your own kind of reality into your own persona, versus now where you are able and allowed to
Mhm.
say no thanks to that, and I'm that's not part, and I don't need to do that, because now going back into the pattern that was created right here, it became such a norm to then now when we actually have the freedom and have the space to really speak and say, but how do I do that now? Because I've never learned how to do that way over here. So I've been going through my life this entire time with this non-availability to me, even though I had it now, I have the right now. Because I'm pretty sure back then, if you would have said no, thank you, that would have been a big deal. I know in my culture, that would have been a big deal
Yeah.
to tell my elderly parents, or, any elderly person in my culture, no. That would have been a big huge deal in my culture, because you have to respect your older, you have to stay, you have to do what the teacher is telling you, and you have to, like you said, don't talk in class, don't be the clown, like, you know what I mean, like it's almost the strict um rules that were placed. But then when we get to a part where we now take our birthright and our freedom to really do speak up, it's almost like I'm in a cage. I'm in an invisible cage because I don't even know how to speak up,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't modeled that, and
Yeah.
it was like I over the years I learned how to practice it, but even then it wasn't a comfortable feeling. I would get
Yeah.
really nervous. I would have this like feeling in my gut that, oh my God, I'm a terrible person for asking for, what I need, or for saying no. What are people gonna think about me? All these
Mm-hmm.
stories going on in my head because it's so deeply ingrained in me. It was kind of like part of my identity to be that person. So
Right.
it was very uncomfortable for me. Yeah.
Right. And then I can only imagine when you then, take on all these lot of workloads, that could you maybe finish them? Yes. Did you probably finish them? I'm pretty sure you did, but under what cost again? Under what circumstances did you then mentally had to suffer to just bang out this work and not be the person that cannot do it? Because here we are having this roadblock of I don't know how to say no because I never either was allowed to, I never learned it, I never knew how. But then also the part of like, what are they going to think if I can't? What does that really mean to me?
Mhm.
Who am I if I now really cannot do it for one time?
Yeah.
So that self-drivenness, that self, because I feel like there's a really fine line between really being self-driven and really accomplished and wanting and a go-getter and a goal setter, but also being still honoring ourselves enough to be like, I really need a break. And if this material has to sit another week for it to completely be finished, then so be it. But my own well-being comes above anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'm so curious to find out, was there, did you experience some type of burnout going through life like that? Or like, how, because I can only imagine, right? Like how do you like, when was the absolute breaking point, or like what happened to that breaking point? Like how did the volcano erupt in a sense, like
Mhm.
how did it really all come to the surface?
Yeah, yeah. And it was not just once, but I've experienced burnout multiple times
Oh,
throughout my career. And
mhm,
that was when I started like feeling sick. I started feeling like very depressed. And I was like, I
mhm,
can't do anything. Like I would wake up in the morning and I would be like, I don't want to get out of my bed, you know? Is it, what's going to happen if I quit my job today? And that went on for like months and months and months, in every day waking up like, I want to quit my job. But then I'm like, well, you can't. You have a life that you need to pay for. You have expenses. So that's not an option. And then I would get up and put on a face, you know, a happy face, go do my thing, you know, not letting anyone find out about how I was really feeling and how burned out I was, because again, you know, I had to always be at my best, you know, that wasn't an option. What are people going to think about it?
Right.
So it was just like pushing through and through and through, rather than really thriving or really enjoying. And then I reached a point where I was like, I started making mistakes at work, or I was in meetings and I would just catch myself procrastinating and not even paying attention to what was going on. And that was the point that I really got scared. Again, that perfectionist kind of like
Right.
came to rescue, I would say here, saying that, uh-oh, like you need to pay attention to what you're doing. You need to get some help. Like this cannot continue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it sounds very challenging, you know, like multiple burnouts, multiple months long or even years feeling like why I'm even here, why I don't want to do this ever again. And still yet putting up, you know, a mask and masking through and, you know, basically faking through, you know, living a life that actually seems from the outside so wonderful, but internally like it's a bunch of turmoil, you
Mm.
know. And I think it's just really so interesting when we have these situations to really allow ourselves to really go back and really see how much childhood really does affect us all. You know what I mean? Like how much really, and it could be small moments that we think as an adult, if this small moment that had happened there that caused really that wound or that breaking point in that moment to a child, if we experience that today as grown-ups, it'd be like it's no big deal. But like in that moment when you experience such thing as a child, it can be so severe and it can take years. I know for me, it took years to figure certain things out that had happened to me when I was a small child until looking at the red thread that I dragged in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm like seeing, I'm making the connection. Now I only see how this really did affected me and how it still affects me today. Like for me personally, I took a lot of my stuff from my past into my future and I created kind of like this mixed signal idea to the universe of like, I'm trying to manifest, but I'm trying to manifest from up here because I'm dragging this old ball with me that I should have already left years ago behind and just locked away. But, you know, so I can only imagine how, you know, how challenging it actually was to live life like that, especially how you said you were a perfectionist internally. You're really the type of personality that really said like, no, I know I can do this better. I need to do this better. But is it, I'm so curious, was it always that you had yourself in mind first, thinking, okay, I cannot produce this because it's me? Or was it also the outside world that really always played a role in your mind of like, well, what would my parents think? Or what would people at my job think? Like, was it kind of like an outside thing? Or was it really only slowly like internally within you?
Mm. I would say it was a combination of both. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
what people thought and what they expected of me, was, you know, what was really important to me. And those could have been like stories that I made in my mind, you know, just like projecting your own thoughts and your own
Mm-hmm.
expectations to other people and thinking, oh, this is how they're thinking about me, or this is how they're viewing
Right.
me. And yeah, like as a kid, those expectations came from external world, because obviously I didn't know how to put those expectations, but then I internalized them so much that it even became worse than, you know, what others were expecting from me. And
Yeah.
another thing that was, you know, part of the culture growing up was there was no such thing as trial and error. Like that was a taboo. So I learned, and that like hand in hand with my perfectionism was a recipe for disaster, because I was like, oh, I have to get everything right from the very beginning.
Right.
There's no, again and again, it's like thinking, okay, well, if I make a mistake, what are other people going to think about me? How are they going to judge me? So it was kind
Mhm.
of like a very vicious cycle of,
Cycle.
yeah,
Right.
not, being afraid. And that even like stopped me from trying so many things in my life, because I'm like, oh, well, I want to be perfect from the very first time that I try this thing. And if I cannot,
Mhm.
so I might as well not even start it, yeah, it was a very scary feeling for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting because, and I'm not saying this just to put it as a just, but it really only just happened in your mind.
Mhm.
Like that's what's so crazy to me, when we really think about it, these holdbacks, these strongholds that we put on ourselves are really created in our own mind. And it's just so powerful to know that we actually do have the ability to break that cycle. It's literally just making a decision, but it's so simple to say, well, just be different. Just do it. When your own mind is so used to, these thought forms and these thought patterns, to now all of a sudden just break it all. But
Mhm.
missing out on life and not living life to the fullest because of that, my mind is like everywhere right now. It's like, ice skating, rollerblading, like skateboarding, surfing, painting a picture, like, I don't know, little things, small things that, anybody would be like, okay, well, that's not amazing, but that's cool, great, no problem. Oh, you fell down, that's okay, let's try again, like,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I like, I have so much respect for you that still manage to find your way in this way, because, your job that you then really started, because I know you said IT, right? Was kind of like your main field. That's very
Yeah.
demanding, and that's very obviously very intelligent people do these jobs. So, it's still very impressive that you buckled through all of that and was such a high producer in your job besides this mental struggle. Like, that's very fascinating to me, which really shows me how expanding our mind can actually really be. Like, our mind can so expand to really bang out one part, but like still produce, yet go encaved like a fetal, that has no idea about life. Like, it's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, our mind is so beautiful, and it's just very wonderful. I love reading up on psychology and how the brain works. And it's just
Mhm.
fascinating, and we keep finding new things about our brains and how our mind works every day, I feel like. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's amazing. There's definitely, as you said, like these things are in our mind. It's easier said than done to like change those habits and change those
Mhm.
mindsets, because there are a lot of things that go into it. There's like muscle memory, there's neural pathways that's formed in your brain that all need to rewire. There are things that you've learned that now you need to unlearn and start learning again. So it's a very complicated system. It's not that easy to say, oh, just,
Mhm.
change your mind or
Yeah.
do things differently from now on. It definitely takes a lot of practice and
Yeah.
dedication and, being willing to actually make that change in your life.
Yeah, and probably also some good help from the outside. I mean, is that something that is fair to say, that these kind of really, when you're so trained to think one way, can that even be done on somebody self, or really is there really professional help needed to just maybe do it faster or just really break out? Like, what is your personal opinion on that? Do you think people really need to then consult with somebody that really can help navigate these thoughts and break the patterns while we're talking through them? Or is that really something that we can do on our own by
Mhm.
having the willingness and having the courage of saying, like, okay, I don't like this, and I figure this out somehow? Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's doable on your own,
Mhm.
but it's always better to work with a professional who can guide you through this path and can provide you with tools or can help you. Sometimes you need to talk through things. Sometimes you need someone who doesn't hold any judgment against you, to just hear what you have to say and help you with that, to help you ask some provoking question, to, bring things out, or to say things or ask things that would plant a seed inside you and will make you think and reflect more and dive deeper into yourself. So it's definitely easier to work with someone. It would be probably a faster transformation. And yeah, like a lot of people are professionals, they have been trained, so they know the most efficient way to help you through this. And they can help you with accountability as well, because for any change you want to make, you need to have some accountability, or you will fall back and you might give up. So it's nice, it's nice to have that support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also feel like, asking the questions, for me, it's really all about questions. And I really strive on really getting challenging questions that I, in this moment, cannot answer for myself in situations like that. That's really where I'll like, okay, I gotta think about this one, and then when I don't have an answer, because usually I'm very witty with my answers and I'm like, very good. I'm like, I always have something to say about something. But then if I find myself in situations where now I don't have an answer in this moment, that really drives me, that makes me feel like, okay, wow, I haven't seen it from this perspective. I wasn't able, especially when emotions, I feel like, are involved too. It's so challenging to really step out of the emotion and step out of your glass house, and just really see what's outside versus you being directly in the midst of it all. So I think like the question part really was always something that I personally enjoyed a lot when I worked with, spiritual mentors, or like, you know any kind of other mentors that kind of like, help me through certain life cycles. So that really was always good for me, like the homework and the questions, like, I want you to tell me about this, or I want you to think about that and then get back to me and let me know. Like that made me really like, oh. And then when I started to talk about it and write it down, because I'm really big on talking and writing, I'm like, oh, I get it now, because my mind was processing it while I was writing it. And then my verbal self kind of gave its comment to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
like that nudging somebody, like really getting somebody to that part of like, okay, how about this? Or did you ever thought about that? Or, just asking a question that you never ask yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's really important to have that other person's perspective, because everyone looks at differently. Everyone has different experiences with life that you don't necessarily have. So just being able to talk to someone,
Mhm.
and hearing their side of it, that's really
Mhm.
important. Yeah. And to your point, being asked those questions that you can't answer at the moment, it will let you to stay with your thoughts in your own time, in your me time, and just sit with your thoughts and really
Mhm.
look inside and see, okay, well, maybe this is the first time I'm thinking about this. How do I feel about it? And to your point, just like writing out or talking it out, speaking with someone, it does
Mhm.
really help us process our feelings and emotions and even thoughts.
Mhm.
We have I don't know how many thousand thoughts we have that goes through our mind a day. And
Right.
it's so different when you talk about them or when you journal, than when
Right.
just thinking those thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is that kind of like what let you into your field that you are in today? Like all of this, that kind of like, because I know it's so, for me, it's always so fascinating, like psychology and like the mind and how everything works and functions and the patterns and the whatever. Like it's super fascinating to me, but I know it was very fascinating to you too, right? So, well, I'm so curious, how was your transition? Like I know we stopped that you did like really high performance situations with IT and in that field of life, but like what was kind of like your breaking out of that into the field that you are in now? Like were you always interested in that, or did you needed help and you're like, oh, actually this sounds kind of cool, I'm or
Yeah, I was, as I said, I was always very fascinated about psychology and how our
Mm,
brain works. So I would always like
mm,
read up on different things. And I was very into health as well, like trying to lead a healthy lifestyle. And
mhm,
um, I actually studied biomedical engineering at college because that was also like a combination of all the different subjects that I loved, you know, of science, math, physics, biology,
mm,
physiology. But
right.
then life took me on a different path, and I ended up doing technology consulting and all that. It was actually very interesting because through my company, like this tech company that I'm working for, a consulting company that I'm working for, participated in an experiment where they wanted to kind of bring on coaches to see how that's going to affect the wellness of employees within the company. So some people
Mm,
volunteered. I was one of them. And those were functional medicine coaches. I had only 5 sessions, so it wasn't like a lot for me to say that it was transformational, but I
mhm,
really liked the concept. And that was the first time I heard about functional medicine. I mean, I was kind of trying to live my life according to similar values to functional medicine. I just never had a word for it. And
mhm.
learning about it, it was really fascinating to me. And I was like, wow, I want to do this. Obviously, the perfectionist in me was like, I wish I could be a functional medicine practitioner, but that's a lot of time and investment. So I'm like, coaching could be also, you know,
Yeah.
helpful as well, because it's kind of like therapy. And then you need
Mm,
to have information about functional medicine. You need to have all that knowledge as well. So I became really interested in when the coaching school, that the same place where they brought coaches from, when they started their next cohort, I was like, I want to do this. I'm very passionate about this. It's going to teach me all about functional medicine. Well, not all about, but a lot about functional medicine and what it is. And I would actually be able to apply it both to my own life and to life of others, because I always thought, you know, I would see people who would just reach out to their medicine cabinet, you know, every time a headache came up and just like popping
yeah.
pills. And I was always against that. I
Yeah.
would resist medicine a lot, and be like, well, we're all already putting a lot of load on our liver, you know, by the food we eat, I don't know, the lotion, everything we put on our skin, the air we
Yeah.
breathe. So I don't want to overwhelming more than it is already. So I always had those things on my mind, but I never had the actual science behind of it. And this was my chance to learn about that, as well as learn ways where I can help people, you know, change their lifestyle according to functional medicine. And actually, to take a step back, for those who don't know, functional medicine takes a look at the root cause of diseases that happen in our bodies. If you imagine a tree, what conventional medicine or Western medicine looks at is like the trunk of the tree and those branches. So everything that's on the outside, all the symptoms, everything that you can see while looking at the patient, or um, everything that they
Mhm,
tell you that's going on with them. But what functional medicine looks at is actually the roots. So what is the exact root cause that's
mhm,
you know, leading to those symptoms, and addressing those at the root cause, rather than just, you know, taking pills and medications and like putting a band-aid on the symptoms. Not saying at all that medications are, you know, an absolute no. Obviously, they still recommended when needed, but just going back and seeing, okay, if you have an autoimmune disease, let's say, I don't know, Hashimoto's, like a thyroid disease, what is the root cause of that? How can we help you, you know, feel better, or take
right.
those symptoms? Even in some cases, not Hashimoto's, but even in some cases, how can we reverse that? Like they're able to
Yeah.
reverse type 2 diabetes. by
Yeah.
changing those lifestyles. So these are the things that I learned in coaching. I feel like for the first time in my life, I found my passion, because it was a combination of everything that I really loved. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as I love technology and I use it on a daily basis, probably more than I should have, I like to do something where I get to help people on a biological, on a cellular level.
Right.
Not something that is, I don't know, it's life, not something artificial. So this coaching, being able to help people with their behavior, with their lifestyle changes, with bringing about, helping themselves with their wellness, and
Mm-hmm.
pursuing goals, wellness goals in their life. That's something that I'm really passionate about, because I feel like technology can be there, we can advance in technology as much as we can, but if you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have your health, then nothing else matters in this life. And that's what I want to be able to contribute to.
Yeah. Health is wealth, straight up. Health is wealth, because honestly, and I'm really so fascinated. So first of all, I'm congratulations that it really seems like that you really found what you really needed to find. And it's again so interesting, if we would have not went through all the stuff that we had gone through,
Yep.
right, would we really found what we had found? I guess it's always going to be a question, that it's going to be a mystical thing that probably will never be answered. But like, yeah, I hear you, like all that. And it seems like it's many things in once. It's like helping people to make a difference in their mindset and their patterns and their thinking and their thought forms. But also with that, combining, what do you really put inside your temple? What is it really that you additionally put in your temple with the things that you cannot control, like the air that we can breathe? We cannot control what's being sprayed up there, unfortunately. The creams that we put on, we can pay closer attention, but almost in every cream, there's something, or toothpaste, or deodorant, or like laundry detergent, like and the list goes on and on. There's so many things on daily basis that are uncontrollable, in a sense, that we are consuming. And then if we can avoid not putting any extra chemicals inside of us, like you said, like a headache pill, or necessarily, medicine that is needed for specific situations like diabetes, or other things that people really need. If we can reverse that and really, substitute that with kind of like household remedies. That's really what comes to mind to me, because back in the days, my grandma, it'd be like, oh, you have this, it's okay, you have a headache, no problem, 2 espresso with a lot of lemon, you'll be better. And it's true, like a nice strong espresso with a fresh squeezed lemon. You drink it, it tastes nasty, but it's gone. Or when you have like neck pain, to go really between your fingers, like right here, and
Mhm.
squeeze, like find that spot, it's gone too. Like it's little things like that. They were not just made up. People really, a long time ago, they used these household remedies to cure themselves.
Mhm.
And I feel like so much got replaced by exactly these kind of things. Oh, you feel bad? Oh, you feel depressed? Why don't you take some pills? But then if I take this pill, how will I get off the pill if I'm feeling better? Well, then you have to take another pill to get off the first pill. And and it's like, and it's just so much that I think it's wonderful if we are, again, open to that as individuals, to really be like, you know what? I do want to try that. Because
Mhm.
I don't know how you feel, but I really feel like everything starts internally within our own self.
Mhm.
And stress can cause so many sicknesses and so many diseases and so many unnecessary things we're going through. And it could be depression, it could be real severe sicknesses, it could be so, like, stress is really such a killer for so many people, and overloading themselves. And then when we have a story like yours, where it goes back generationally and culturally, and all of that is being dumped on us, it's hard to stay balanced. Like, it's so challenging to maintain. You have a life to support, you have bills to pay, and then you need to sleep at a certain time. You need to be awake at a certain time. You need to have 500 children that want something from you. Like you know, but I feel like when we find these solutions, you know, through functional medicine or through remedies that are not chemically based, I'm all for that. You know,
Mhm.
I'm really all for that because why not try it? You know, I feel like if your mind is really in tune with the intention of you really wanting this to work, you can help, you know, it can help, you know, if you really strongly convinced, like, no, I'm good on this, I don't want it this way, and it doesn't belong to my body anymore. You know, I mean, I heard amazing stories. This one lady, she had breast cancer, and literally she decided in her mind she doesn't accept the diagnose, and she
Mm.
said to the doctor, thank you for this, but no thank you. She's not accepting that. She did not associate it. She never spoke out the word. She never associated herself with it. She never, when she had any conversations with any human, she never addressed it. She had this diagnosis given to her. She acted like this was never, this is not a part of her body. Like,
Mhm.
she literally internally rejected it and actually made it go away. You know, I
Wow.
think don't ask me what the lady's, I wish I could remember her name. She either wrote a book or she, like, I read it somewhere and I was
Mhm.
fascinated with the story, you know, how powerful, again, our mind really is,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I
And
think I
so,
read a similar story years
oh
ago.
yeah,
I was a kid, I think I was 12. I read that in a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. It was
okay.
something similar where, yeah, two lab tests were switched. So they told the person who didn't have cancer that they have cancer, and they told the other person that they don't have cancer and they have miraculously healed. And that's actually what happened. The person who had cancer got healed. The other person developed cancer, and I think they passed away or something. But the power of your mind is
Mm,
very, very, like, it's amazing. And
yeah.
that intelligence exists in every
Mm,
single cell in our bodies. I was in this webinar, and I don't know how much more time we have, but it's this is a subject that I can
please
talk
share.
about
No, this is,
forever.
please share. Please share.
Yeah, but I was in a webinar by Dr. Mindy Peltz, where she was talking about how from the time, like even before you're conceived, there is this intelligence in the egg and the sperm. And the egg actually picks which sperm it wants to conceive it. And
Stop.
so that intelligence, it grows, it multiplies into more cells, and then it propagates into every single cell in your body. You know, the cells multiply, and then you become an embryo and you become a human being. So that intelligence exists in every single cell in our body. And that's why, like, when you were
Mm,
talking about stress, stress has this really profound impact on our body, on our cells, because it causes inflammation in our body, and that whole
mm,
inflammation is what throws off our body. It's the root cause of a lot of diseases, a lot of chronic diseases, even some cancers, is that
yeah.
inflammation. So we need to be very careful about, to your point, the chemicals that we use, the food we put into our body, you know, how
Mm,
we manage our time, how we
mm,
manage our stress. Those are some really important facts that we need to consider. And again, I want to say that I'm not against medication. Some people need
right.
medication, absolutely. But then there's a lifestyle that comes with the medication. You can't just take the medication and expect that you're going to be healed miraculously. No, there is something wrong with the way you're living your life, with the lifestyle that you have, that you need to correct so that you can
Mm,
help your body, so that
mm.
maybe eventually you can come off that medication. But it's that change needs to happen for us to move towards that healing process. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I very much agree. Yeah. Yeah, very much, because it's not, it's look, it's the same example. You want to lose weight, right? And you go, let's say, 5 times per week to the gym for an hour, which is very good if somebody does that, by the way. But then you come home okay, after the good hour and after the good hour of cardio, and then you have a good thick pizza, or you have ice cream at 10 o'clock at night, or you have like a bunch of sweet snacks in front of the TV. You know, you just destroyed the hour of workout and you didn't do anything. You know, all you at this point doing is probably you're maintaining your weight.
Mhm.
You know, you probably won't put any weight on, because if you do this every day and every night, you still have a bunch of snacks, probably nothing will happen. But like I'm saying, there's no result,
Yeah.
right? So we definitely want to combine always certain things that it's mind, body, and spirit, right?
Mhm.
Like it always goes together. It's really, how does my mind up here feel? What does my spirit tell me? And how does my soul overall feel, right? And if I find a way to really harmonize all those three things in one, you know, I think anything is possible. You know, like
Yeah.
really finding the right tool, like you said, you know, it could be many things. It could be just really your lifestyle of, if you know you're a high performer in your job or at home, or you're an entrepreneur or whatever you are, you got to find an outlet for you, right?
Mhm.
Like you got to really find something where it's like, okay, this is really only me time, and stick to that. And me time could be 10 minutes per day, it could be 2 hours per day. It really, it doesn't matter the time, it matters that you intentionally put something aside that has nothing to do with anything other than just yourself, you
Yeah.
know. Almost like back in the days when we were children, I love the swings a lot, you know. So honestly, sometimes when I'm with my child at the play, I'm on the swing, and the moms look at me like, is she okay? I'm like, yeah, girls, I just feel like I want to swing today.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, and so it's childlike doing things that we keep forgetting when we're grown-ups. But really, that's like, to me, that's like the most quickest way to remember who you were as a child and what you loved so much, you know. Or like playing with marbles. I'm so lucky that my son loves marbles, because I'm constantly with the marble, you know, like I love it so. But it's little details like that that really doesn't cost any tremendous effort. It's just really allowing yourself to think differently about options that maybe be presented to you where maybe you never thought of, but
Mhm.
just, okay, I'm going to try. Why not? You know, what can really go wrong if I'm trying this and it sounds logically doable? Why not, right? Like just the allowance of like stepping out of your norm, stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I want to
Mhm.
emphasize that it's available to you. A lot of these is available to you free of cost, you know.
Wow.
It's a matter of taking time for yourself. It's a matter of like, yeah, playing, being like unleashing the inner child inside of you.
Mm,
Play is really important. I'm doing some trauma courses right now, and they keep talking about it, how play can be really fundamental in you know, helping people connect with their own body, helping people to
mm,
ground and be
mm,
present, be in the
mm,
moment. So that
mm,
also helps a lot with like, yeah, stress management and
mm.
being in your body and just feeling alive.
Right. Yeah. Grounding. That's a good word. You know, like really grounding. Like just go out there in nature, you know, barefoot, stick your feet in sand, or like stick your feet on a nice grass
Hmm.
area, you know, and just really take a good deep breath. Like it's, you know, honestly, it's so like I love going to the beach and doing that, you know, just sitting by the waves and just really breathing that salty air in. It's my favorite. It's so good for your temple too, you know, and just releases all that stress too. Like I feel like every time when I breathe in that salty air,
Hmm.
it's like a little bit lighter, you know, like that. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
now what? You know, now let's make a plan. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But is it safe to say that you are really a certified functional medicine coach these days? So
yeah.
we, okay, great.
Yeah,
Because
I am a national board certified health coach. Yeah.
wow, that's wonderful. If you are okay with that, I would love to place a link
Hmm.
in the description. And if anybody wants to venture out and really try something more organic and more, you know, more on like the less chemical side, and more, you know, on the natural side, and more like, you know, anything that is organic, I would love for them to connect with you. So
Yeah, of course. I would be happy
yeah,
to.
yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Hiva, this was such a great conversation. I'm so happy that you came, and what a light you are, and so cool. Really so much respect for you to just put it all out there, to really acknowledge and now look back on you, and telling your younger self, like, wow, even though through all of that we did it anyway, and now we're even doing something more cooler, because I don't think that when you were a teenager, when it was really the thick of it all, that you thought ever that you become a functional certified coach, right? So I'm so happy for you, and I'm really proud of you. From human to human, this is a really great accomplishment, and I'm glad that you got to the other side.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you for having me on your show,
Of
on your
course.
podcast. And I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I sure did. We had a great talk. I loved it. It was really interesting. It was it was very interesting. It was very enlightening. It was very, like a lot of good knowledge, you know, was dropped, a lot of, golden nuggets. And I think we will all get something out of it. But that's it from me, podcast lovers. Another great one. And as always, if you have something to say, if you have something on your heart, my mic is always open to you. It could be to this topic or any other topic. Come and join this R&R Resilience and Rebirth movement. I'm happy to invite you, be my guest. But until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.